Hey everybody, my name is Owen, welcome back to the Sonic Chronicle. You might be wondering why you're staring at nothing right now. The answer is because I couldn't fit this on my desk. This is a book that I picked up last time I was at home in my parents' house. I was looking through some of my old stuff and I came across this, The Electric Guitars Illustrated Encyclopedia by Tony Bacon, with contributions from Dave Burlock, Paul Day and Michael Wright. Guitar men, wake up and pluck wire for sound. Let 'em hear you play. Charlie Christian, 1939. I thought this might be a good topic for a video just because it has all kinds of weird and wonderful guitars and guitar shapes and things like that in here that I think it might be worth looking at and taking a trip down memory lane for some of the bigger brands. With that in mind, I think it's worth taking a look at maybe Fender and maybe Gibson in this video, depending on how long it goes on for. We'll see how we get on there. But we'll certainly look at Fender anyway. Before we do crack into this though, please don't forget to like this video if you like what I do. Subscribe to the channel because it helps me out massively. And of course, leave me comments in the comment section if there are any particular comments on any guitars that we look at in here, or if you have any particular brands that you might want to take a look at that might be collected in this book. Without further ado though, let's get started. Let's take a look at Fender. I'm not going to lie, a big chunk of this book is taken up by both Fender and Gibson, but we're going to see how we get on here. So looking at Fender here straight away, the opening statement here is, no other company has contributed more to the look and sound of the solid body electric guitar than Fender. Clarence Leo Fender's original firm changed the course of popular music by revolutionizing the design and manufacture of electric guitars. Fair enough. So successful did Fender become that in 1965 the business was sold to the giant CBS conglomerate for $13 million, an unprecedentedly large figure. And then the CBS era was, not particularly good by a lot of people's standards, and they actually, made sure that Leo was unable to. They made him sign an NDA effectively, or a no compete, that made sure that he wasn't able to, produce his own guitars and going forward, and that they owned, Strats and Tellys and that kind of thing. However, in 1974, I believe, there was a patent put in place, or I suppose a company started called Music Man, Ernie Ball Music Man, or maybe it was just Music Man at the time. And they were putting through patents for things like the Stingray that had no names associated with them, and then Leo Fender joined Music Man in 1975. From what I believe is the story there. Very, very suspicious. But anyway, let's move on. Let's look at some of this stuff. This is referred to as the Broadcaster here. So the Fender Broadcaster, the most important electric guitar ever made. It's what we know as the modern Telly. And there were two models produced. There was the Broadcaster with the two pickups, and there was the Esquire produced with the single pickup. And the Esquire model name has been used for Fender's earliest solid body prototype, and then was soon revived for the single pickup production version. The two pickup Broadcaster's name was changed to the Telecaster after Gretsch complained about prior use as a Broadcaster. At first, Fender removed Broadcaster from its decals, making no caster models, but during 1951 had the name Telecaster name in place. Television was obviously a big deal at the time. They wanted Telly to be in there in terms of the name, so hence the Telecaster was born. Moving on from that, we get the classic, the ever-enduring, we get the inescapable shape of the Stratocaster. 3 single coil pickups, whammy bar on some models, no whammy bar on others. Just for a little bit of tremolo, a tremolo system involved. 3 strings here, we've got the double cutaway rather than the single cutaway of the Telecaster. Everyone knows what a Stratocaster is. If you ask someone to draw a guitar, chances are they're drawing a Stratocaster. Then we get into some more interesting models here, right? So we get the Fender Music Master, and the Duo Sonic. So we've got I believe this is a Music Master rather than a Duo Sonic. Fender's cheaper models have been popular with more recent musicians looking for an affordable instrument. Liz Phair from Folk Grunge, Exile to Guyville album appeared in 1993, seen below playing a Duo Sonic, which has the 2 pickups rather than the single pickup, which is what the Music Master has here. It's slightly Stratish, it's slightly Jaggish, it's slightly Jazzmaster-ish. It's got those 2 knobs there still, despite only having 1 pickup. So it's an interesting model, it's an interesting make, and it's distinct. It's not one that you see these days, I suppose. Over here, of course, we have 3 Jazzmasters, speaking of Jazzmasters. And what I love about some of these Jazzmasters is that the headstock obviously matches the body on some of them. And that's really interesting to me. Obviously a very different bridge to what Fender would have been producing previously. We've got this, you know, standardized, you know, Telecaster style bridge here. And then we have, you know, the plate back here that the strings will go through, rather than, you know, sitting on this plate and then sitting on the saddles back here. It's an interesting design choice for these particular instruments. And of course, they come with two P90s then as well, rather than a single coil, which is what Fender have been producing up to this point, right? Just the single coils, whereas P90s would have that little bit more growl, that little bit more body associated with them. Some of the Jazzmasters, of course, have some of these little switches up here. I don't know what they do. As far as I'm aware, just that little knob down at the bottom there, that switches between the pickup positions. I don't know what these things do. Maybe it splits coils or something like that. If you know, let me know in the comment section below. Next page, more Strat-O-Casters. They all have, well, I suppose this one has a slightly different bridge. Perhaps this one has a bridge cover on it, so maybe it's slightly different. Who knows? They're Stratocasters, rosewood fingerboards, Sonic Blue, different color options. More Telecasters, more Jaguars. So we've got these, we haven't seen Jazzmasters before, now we have Jaguars. We have this Sunburst model, again, a bunch of switches down here, a couple of knobs here. We got that same Jaguar style bridge here, with the tremolo system involved here. This is a Candy Apple Red, looks pretty cool. And this one is a standard Sunburst from 1963, and this one came out in 1964 by the looks of things. So up here you can see from this catalogue from 1963-1964 that Fender were actually still pushing Esquires, which is something that you don't actually see these days. You don't see Esquires. You don't see single coil Telecasters. You just see standard Telecasters. You don't see Esquires. The important distinction here, though, is that they had the rosewood fingerboards, fretboards on there, rather than what they would have had previous to that. Probably something cheaper. Next page, we get into some weird stuff. So we get the Mustang down here, relatively low-end Fender according to this, that first appeared in 1964. Again, very popular with grunge, for whatever reason. Possibly to do with colours, possibly to do with the simplification of the output, who knows. It just became one of those staples of grunge and I suppose post-punk and post-rock. Here though, here we've got something special. This is the Fender Electric 12. 2 split coil, single coil pickups across 12 strings, and this bizarre monstrosity of a headstock with this, again, strange string tree in here. And this other strange pickup selector knob, which I kind of like. I kind of like that as a design feature. And then the standard Fender knobs down here. The bridge looks a bit mad. It looks as though some of these strings are going into the same hole for, you know, to sit behind the plate here. So that's an interesting one. I would have thought that would be possibly a terrible idea. I suppose the other thing about these split single coil pickups is that you can kind of, depending on what you want to sound like, you can, you know, raise and lower halves of this thing, right? So maybe you want your top 3 strings to be, you know, in there. Maybe you want it to sound a bit more like a bass 6 or something like that. Maybe you raise that half of the single coil and lower the other one. I don't know. I'm just spitballing ideas there for that, but it is a strange instrument. Then we get this other one here. This one's in Candy Apple Red, and this was apparently Olympic White, clearly a yellow. And then down here we get this other strange one. This is the Fender Marauder, and if I had an issue with switches before, this is bizarre. I have no idea what all of these things would be used for. Apparently Fender's 1965-66 catalogue included this page with 3 Marauders on it. 3 hammerless Jaguars, and then 2 Marauders with pickups hidden underneath the pickguard, which is interesting. So these would be the Marauders over here. So they toyed with that idea of hiding the pickups underneath the pickguard, which is an interesting one. I feel like there would be sound issues generally, but it's an interesting idea that we kind of see coming back today. But it also seems to have slightly fanned frets here as well, which is also a bit strange. Sorry, it says here, this 1966 Marauder has multiple switches and angled frets. The original prototype was even odder with pickups concealed below the pickguard. And sadly, it never went into production. So if I were ever to get to a stage where I can have some kind of custom guitar with Fender, that's what I'm going for. Give me the Marauder. No pickups visible, cool looking aesthetic. More Stratocasters. Clearly this is, you know, George Harrison's guitar over here. We got these three models over here, a black, Olympic white, maybe. And we've got this Placid Blue, Lake Placid Blue. More Telecasters, but this is where we get into the Paisley stuff and the flower power stuff and more interesting finishes for Telecasters. That's really cool. More interestingly though, we get a 6-string Coronado over here and a 12-string Coronado here in the middle. So Fender were going in on 12 strings around this time for whatever reason. Maybe they did some market research and found that people were interested in 12 strings. Maybe they were trying to, you know, bridge the gap between acoustic and electric players, something along those lines. I don't know. But this is the reason, or these are the guitars that they produced to kind of try and bridge that gap somewhat. They call them the 12s, for obvious reasons. Over here we have a Fender Bronco, where we saw the Music Master previously have the slanted single coil in the bridge, or the neck position. Here we have a slanted single coil in the bridge position, and this interesting looking trem system down here. That's something that I want to look up a little bit more about. And apparently this is a new low-end model with a standard red finish. This came out in 1972. Holy moly. I tell you what, you don't see reissues of Broncos these days. Oh, and this bad boy over here. This is a Fender's doomed attempt to make an archtop electric. This was an LTD Montego. As I say, I really like the aesthetic on the paisley, the pink paisley and the blue flower, especially with this clear plastic pickguard. I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, that's, maybe I would get a Marauder with the paisley pink. Maybe that would work. Over here, we get into some bizarre territory, and this is the kind of stuff that I love, right? So this bad boy over here, again, it's got the same kind of style as the Music Master over here, and this is referred to as the Fender Swinger. We've got this bizarre body type here, which seems to have just been, you know, cut from cut-offs, or maybe it is the result of a bunch of guitars being cut out of a single piece of wood. Who knows? But these apparently were made by adapting parts left over from existing instruments. So, you know, as I said earlier, the Music Master had, you know, that same, or the Bronco also had that pickup in that same position. Maybe this is just a Bronco with a bizarre body shape and a different bridge, you know, and a different headstock. You know, this spear-looking bad boy over here. This lad over here is clearly a Fender 12 headstock, and presumably neck, going into split single coils, again, presumably from that Fender 12. Again, with the Fender 12 knob down here and the trem system. And this was referred to as, yeah, okay, this is a custom, hacked from an electric 12 and Mustang parts. And the Swinger was a low-end short-scale guitar. Actually, that makes sense. It's a slightly shorter neck. And this is the Fender Telecaster with a thin line Telecaster specifically. And then over here we get your standard Telecaster. It's made of rosewood. All right, more Stratocasters. Brilliant, love it. Jimi Hendrix one. More Telecasters, but importantly for me, I love these. I love the Fender Telecaster Custom, specifically 73 model is what I'm after. I would love one of those at some point in my life, because I love the bizarre pickguard compared to what Tellies, you know, traditionally have. And I love that there's a humbucker in the neck position, and I love the single coil in the bridge. I think that they're a great guitar. I think they sound great. They've been played by some of my favorite bands over time. Yeah, I think that they're a great instrument. Fender thin line gained humbucking pickups in 1971, and then these two other custom Tellies were released with the neck humbuckers. And this bad boy over here clearly has a strap neck and two humbuckers in both positions. I'm not big on Tellies having Strat necks. I prefer the other aesthetic. If you put a Telly neck on a Strat body, that's more my speed. We have this bad boy, this rhinestone Strat here, which, you know, is hand carved with rhinestones in it, hence the name. Pretty unremarkable. Aside from that, you know, it's your standard Strat. Maybe a pickguard cover down here, or a bridge cover down here, but that's about it. This guy over here, the Starcaster, obviously big resurgence recently due to Tom DeLonge's custom Starcaster for his work with Blink-182. I believe he just has the one pickup in the, or one humbucker in the bridge position. They come in a variety of pastel colors. Not as many knobs on here. I believe there has been a Starcaster reissue under Squire though, quite recently. Maybe double check that one on me. But I don't believe they have this bizarre looking headstock. Fender have messed with headstocks over the years, but they always come back to these, you know, standard Strat ones or the standard Tele ones. Or sometimes if they're doing a reissue, the massive CBS ones, which I'm quite partial to, frankly. But I think it would be a good move to go back to this kind of thing at some stage. You know, it shows that they're willing to, you know, try different things and to explore parts of their past that, you know, have often been overlooked. Over here, we get more Strats, we get more Teles. They just have different pickups and different finishes, different body types. That's about it, different materials in the body. You will see that these models and models similar to this are still being created today, are still being manufactured and produced today, and are being sold for ungodly amounts of money. This though, this kind of stuff, this is my jam. So we've got the Dequisto Deluxe down here. It's a hollow body electric guitar with a humbucker in the bridge or the neck position, and that's all. Very simple. I do like the way that the bridge is kind of like an acoustic guitar, or kind of like a classic acoustic guitar, and then the bridge is there. It's an interesting look, possibly challenging to intonate, but it's an interesting one. This guy though, the Fender Performer, was released in 1986, or at least this one was made in 1986. Huge amount of space between the neck and the pickup, and then we've got the bridge pickup like right there as well. So, you know, there's not a ton of space in this. This one seems to have a form of a locking nut and a locking bridge associated with it, trying to get into that market in the 80s. You know, that kind of, you know, glam rock, glam metal music that was being produced at the time. I like the angles. I quite like this body type. It's a little bit offset. It's a little bit sharp. It's angular, and you know, it's got that same kind of spear-like headstock that we were seeing on what was it, the Bronco earlier? No, it wasn't the Bronco. It was the Swinger. Yeah, the spear-like headstock of the Swinger. Yeah, that's the stuff. Anyway, I'd be interested to see what these sound like. Okay, so there's no details about the Performer on this page, but I'll be looking for that. Also, we have the Katana with that sharp headstock. You can't call a guitar a Katana and not have that. And we've got this kind of flying V style body, but filled in V, kind of trying to make it look like a guitar pick maybe, or like a lightning bolt. It doesn't matter. I kind of love it. I think that placement of the input jack is poor. It's going to be a pain to play sitting down. But standing up, you'd probably look pretty cool, I suppose. I think it's probably going to be relegated to, you know, one of those things that people tried but never really came off in history. We've got a 12-string Strat for the first time, rather than a Fender 12. And we have that blue flower power finish on a Stratocaster with the clear plastic pickguard as well. On a Strat this time, with an overly large headstock. More Strats, more Teles, different pickups. Oh, this one has scalloped frets. Cool. Moving on, we've got more Strats again, but this time, what's interesting here is that, you know, this one aside, these ones mostly have humbuckers in the bridge, which is the first time we've seen that in this book, with the Stratocasters specifically. We've seen it with Telecasters, not so with Stratocasters. So at this point in time, you know, this was 1990, Fender were dealing with a lot of people creating super Strats, right? So people who have, you know, double humbuckers on a Strat style body, or humbuckers at the bridge at the very least, to try and become that little bit more versatile. Music was getting heavier, Fender had to move with the times, although I would say if they were doing that in 1990, they probably moved with the times a little bit late, and you know, they probably should have done that to their standard models, rather than maybe releasing the Katana or the Performer, if they really wanted to have that classic body style with the new sound of music, or the new direction that music was going in at that point in time. Jeff Beck obviously played Stratocasters, fair play to him. And then the next page we get different models of Telecasters. So we've got these hot rails on this Telecaster, which is kind of cool. We've got 3 single coils in this model here, which is a nice looking paisley, in fairness, with interesting gold hardware there. This is a standard Tele with a different finish. Although it looks like a nice roasted fingerboard there. Same with this, the American Classic here, with some kind of pearloid finish on it. I don't love it. And then we've got Graham Coxon over here. He was a hero of mine in terms of guitar music, playing a Telecaster as well. Then over here we get to another Stratocaster, another Telecaster, with a single pickup in the neck position rather than the bridge position which the Esquires had. We've got the left-handed Jag stang created by Kurt Cobain prior to his demise, and we've got a double humbucker Stratocaster over here. I remember in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I was getting guitar magazines and reading them, there was, you know, reissues of the Jag stang, right-handed reissues. Or actually, yeah, they were right-handed reissues, and they had like a reverse headstock on them, but the body was standard. So it was an interesting one to have at that point in time, but you know, it wasn't really. I wasn't big on Nirvana at the time. In fact, I'm not a massive fan of Nirvana still, but you know, I appreciate what they've done for music as a band. Except for generating the Foo Fighters, I'll never forgive them for that. Next page, we have the Fender Stratocaster, the Jimi Hendrix edition, which is an interesting one. Because the body type is the body's reversed, all the knobs and pickup switches are in the same place, the whammy bar is in the same place, but all the strings are standard. It's going to be a pain in the arse to play. You're not going to have the same level of neck access or access to the upper frets. You're going to miss where your volume and tone are. You're going to accidentally flick the switch. You're going to have a hell of a time hitting the whammy bar. This is really a showpiece more than anything else, as far as I'm concerned, rather than a functional instrument. This guy over here, though, this is an interesting one, because we've got those split coil single coils. This one slanted off to an angle, and we've got the standard strap body with this glitter effect on it, which is nice. We've got this nice bridge and this whammy bar, which seems to be quite finished quite nicely. Rather than having the plastic tip, I always thought those plastic tips looked kind of cheap. And it's 6-string, right? And it's got this reverse headstock as well. So it's got a really cool look to it. And this is called the Helicaster. Which is really neat in my opinion. This is a short-lived signature model, according to this, with mixed electric 12-like split pickups and a Hendrix-style reversed headstock. Then we get these two options down here. This is a Coronado, or sorry, a Cyclone, sorry, and this is a Toronado. The double humbucker one is the Toronado, the humbucker single coil is the Cyclone. And you can see here that, you know, a lot of these body shapes are similar. This is probably like a fatter Jazzmaster, but this is definitely a duo Sonic style body. So there's not much really in terms of difference between all these different models. But yeah, they're really neat. And although I am quite partial to this Toronado here more than the Cyclone. And that's it. That's it for Fender. We've got a bunch of bizarre looking models right here. But that's all that we have here for Fender in terms of this encyclopedia. That went on for longer than I thought. Most of this book is taken up by Fender and Gibson. They're the big boys. They've got all the big history, they've got all the big models, and so on and so forth. So I might do this one, I might do Gibson in another video, and we might look at the comment sections on those videos to see if there are other models that you might want to see, or other brands that you might want to see their history of. Maybe I'll just go through the book, I'll highlight some of the ones that I think are kind of funny, kind of interesting, kind of neat, and we'll take a look at those. But let me know in the comment section below. As always though, thank you for watching. Hit the like button on this video if you like what I'm doing. Subscribe to the channel to see more of this kind of stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.